Good afternoon, everyone. It's really an honor and a privilege to be a part of this program. And it's really one of those exciting challenges. So looking forward to further engagements with you. Just by way of introduction, I'm Mohammed Gauss. I'm the CIO of Tiger Brand. In fact, I just joined Tiger Brands at the beginning of this year. But just for context, to those that may not be totally familiar with Tiger Brands, Tiger Brands is one of the largest manufacturing and marketing companies for fast-moving consumer goods in Southern Africa. And it has a range of brands, and sometimes I even have to look this up because I'm not totally familiar with all of them. So these will be old favorites like COOi, Fatties and Monies, Jungle Oats, All Gold, Purity, Oros, Ingram's, Doom, Castic Rice, Albany Bread. There's a whole host of them. So you name it. I mean, Tiger has a brand in it, and it's usually at the top of its segment. What I'm going to be describing today are actually three innovation briefs. And I'll go through them very quickly, and obviously then the Q&A and further engagements allow us to go into a much more detail. A little bit of a context to this. So the first one relates to what we call smart pricing and revenue growth management. With COVID, with the tougher economic circumstances that we've all been facing, what we're finding is consumers are buying down. So they're buying less of they're buying less categories, and they're buying less of certain categories. So although the actual revenue in the market is sort of stabilized, what people and consumers are buying is less. The challenge that we face, as do all other companies face, how to get more share of the consumer's wallet and how to make that share more profitable. So the real thing that we're challenging for is how do we balance some of those variables and the levers that we have available to be able to drive that revenue, drive the profitability, and drive that growth while maintaining market share. So the key problem statement, and all my slides will have the same sort of, just the market context, what Tiger is doing. But the area of focus is what's the problem that we're trying to solve for. So the first challenge is around how can we leverage data and information that's available there. And this is in-store till data. So we can see everything that consumers buy, including our competitors' products. How could we leverage that information to then come up with the optimum mix of price, architecture or product architecture, package sizing, and pricing decisions around that? And as you know, pricing will be based on a revenue, on a volume and a value thing. So you can increase volume by decreasing price, but there's an optimum balancing point where profitability can be driven to its maximum. There are further things like penetration. Do we target a product at existing consumers or the existing buyers of that product, or do we to encourage them to up buy, or do we target a completely new segment of the market? What is the intensity that we go into the market with, etc.? These are all variables that are available to us, and this is one of the key challenges for the retail sector. So what we're really looking for is somebody to come up with some innovative algorithms and using the data to be able to then come up with, you can run a promotion of X kind with this product, measure the value of that, see what impact it has, and use that as almost a self-learning platform to be able to drive and optimize our product mix, the pricing associated with that, and how do we really reach into the market and ensure greater success around that. Continuously measuring the impact and the effectiveness of what we're doing from a pricing point of view, from a product architecture point of view, etc. So that's the first challenge. Having all the data available, using that to then be able to help us optimize what we reach out to in the market and how we reach out, what price points, etc. The second challenge deals with, earlier this year, we had a product recall. Some of you may have been aware of this, where we had to recall a number of cans. What had happened is the batch of cans that we received from the manufacturer, a few of the cans we detected a problem with the seal, which had the potential to allow contaminants to get into the product. What we then had to do is, these were very, very few of the cans that were impacted that way. But what we didn't have is the ability to be able to see which ones of the finished products were made out of those cans. And if we had that ability to be able to do that, we could then recall or isolate it just to those impacted cans. Without having that, and taking a much more conservative approach, we ended up recalling all the batches, all the pallets that were packed with the cans that came from that manufacturer with those batches. Well, the end result was that we ended up destroying or or recalling far more than what we needed to do. The ideal here would be to have some kind of a smart tracking or tracing solution that would then be able to individually track products, whether it's through packaging or some other mechanisms, so that if we do have a problem with a specific batch, you can almost isolate it to the problematic items rather than generalize it to the entire batch, the entire warehouse content, or entire shipments that occur across the batch. So the idea here is to be able to have that traceability so that if for whatever reason, those products have to be identified in terms of where they are, or there has to be a recall or some other investigation or analysis on that has to be done, we can almost go down to the SKU level in terms of being able to track and trace that. Then the last one deals with what we're calling third-party 2.0. We deal with a lot of third parties, and we procure ingredients and we use suppliers. As I mentioned, we use cans for the previous example, but there are many, many other ingredients and supplies that we get from various suppliers. We are constantly out in the market evaluating new suppliers, understanding how they stack up against our existing suppliers, understanding the capabilities that they have. If they then match our requirements in terms of capabilities, we then take it to the next level in terms of being able to sign an NDA with them. We then go into the third step, which would be in terms of assessing the quality of their products. And if they meet our quality standards, now all of this requires information exchange back and forth. A lot of it can be documentation and other information that is sought. And it's a very tedious and a manual process. Once we then select a supplier, we then provide them with a brief to provide us with certain suppliers or certain products or certain ingredients. And that process of providing the brief into the market is usually done, the ideal for us would be to do it almost on a tender platform. So literally it would be a live real-time tender platform where suppliers that qualify for that will be able to tender for that, give us the pricing. We can make the award directly on the platform and then literally, take that to the next level in terms of contracting with that supplier, providing them with the details, quantities, pricing, location, where the delivery has to happen, etc. But the intent here is to try and streamline and automate as much of this process as we possibly can. As I mentioned, very manually intensive from the start, where we literally engage with potential suppliers, assess them, collect information about them, exchange information and documents with them, then getting to the point once they're on our supplier list in terms of being able to award them or have them bid for work or tender for work for us to be able to award that work and contract for the work that has been awarded. So really the problem here is, there's multiple steps that I've highlighted. We can look at automating or streamlining any one of the steps. The ideal would be the end-to-end for us. So that would be the third problem statement that we have. So that in a nutshell are the three problem statements that we have from our perspective. And as with the previous speakers, I'll end it at that point and handle any questions in the Q&A. Thank you.